Hello friends, it's Sarah here. I thought it was about time to do a proper walkthrough and mini setup of the Mindful Productivity Guide. So I'm here at my standing desk. We are by the window. The birds are chirping and it's open, so you might hear a little bit of noise, possibly some sirens driving by. But if you have the Mindful Productivity Guide, either the physical hard copy here or maybe you have the digital one, then we're going to go ahead and go through setting this up together. So if you're new to the Mindful Productivity Guide, this is an 8x10 planner, and we'll just go ahead and we'll open it up, do a little bit of a walkthrough, and then I do have my pen case here with a bunch of different pens and highlighters, and I'll show you a couple of the different ways that you might want to set this up for yourself. So here is the introduction. We've got a look inside here of what's included in the planner. This is an undated planner, so you've got a year overview, a month by month breakdown, a task bank, an annual game plan, quarterly game plans, project pages, a place for capturing your big ideas, and then the way it's broken down is that each section has a monthly bank that you can use, and then weekly sections in the back. So here's your index. All of the sections are marked out here, and then if you have a specific month or a specific page you want to reference, you can add that in here. And then on this page here, we've got your little welcome, kind of explains the process of the guide. We've got some instructions for the monthly success lists, where you're basically just keeping track of things that went well, whether things that were in your scope of control, things that happened to you, the good things, the wins that you want to remember. And then there's some different ideas here for different daily actions and things that you might want to track in your habit trackers. I also have a list of lists because at the very back of this planner, there are some notes pages, but also collections and list pages, and both of these long form style and columns. And this can be a great place to write down, TV shows you're watching, people on Instagram that you love to follow or catch up with, and then there's tons more list ideas here. So lists of lists, and then there's also some monthly bucket list ideas if you want to create maybe, a handful of things that you want to do for every month this year. On this page, you've got your year overview. So this, you can see I started filling it in. I actually use highlighters for this, and these are the highlighters I use. These are the Bic Bright Liner Grip. I hope that's coming into focus. And I love these. They work really well in the planner. They're just kind of a light pastel. And for anyone wondering, this pen case is from Hobonichi. It's whatever I think it's not necessarily the smallest pouch. I'll have to look it up, but I love these. These are great for pens. I think I have another one I use for makeup, but Hobonichi stuff, it's the best. So here basically you're writing out your months of the year, and this is an undated planner. So if you're one of those people that has a hard time sticking to daily, weekly, or even monthly planning on a consistent basis, which is totally fine, that's why I designed this the way I did, then don't feel pressure to fill this out ahead of time. You can easily just fill this out month by month. Right now, we are in Q2 at the time of this recording, so I've went ahead and filled out the dates for these months. So as you can see, there's spaces here to basically write out the calendar dates, and then that gives you kind of that yearly overview. In this section, you've got your month by month. So at the top here, you write whatever month it is, and then there's a section on the far left for the day of the month and then the day of the week. And I'll show you how I do this. This is a little unconventional, but this is something I learned in college and it just kind of stuck. And basically you label all the days, but for Thursday, I actually use an R. And that's just because Saturday and Sunday are normally not days that I need to worry a whole lot about. There's usually not a whole lot going on there. So sometimes I'll put a U with the Sunday, but I started using R for Thursdays, and one of my professors had us do that, and it just makes it that much easier for quick reference. Like if I see an R, I know it's Thursday. I don't have to question if it's Tuesday. But anyway, in these sections, that's what you're doing. You're writing those out. So I will go through and fill these out, and then basically you've got space here for every day. So if you have an important event, or if you know, for example, like I know I'm going to be doing, another launch later in May or something like that, then you could kind of highlight and create that space. And this just gives you another visual way of mapping out whatever you're doing in your life and business. Also, weeks of the year. If you go to mindfulproductivityblog.com/dates, I have a whole list of websites that give you all of the dates and the weeks of the year. This can be another great way of just like kind of tangibly capturing your time and seeing how far you are in the year. But it can be nice to write down the weeks of the year and what those dates are. And then if there's any specific, focus or anything like that you want to work on, but you've got those there. Then there's just a giant master task bank in the front of the planner. This can be great for capturing down things that aren't necessarily related to a project or aren't necessarily time bound for a specific week. Maybe they're just something you want to keep top of mind. That's what these pages are great for. So in our annual plan section here, let me actually get out a pen. These are my favorite ones. Some of my favorite pens I love to use in these planners. This is the Pilot G207. It's a thicker pen, so but I like the thickness that it uses for these pages. Sometimes there's a little bit of ghosting, but not really. So I really, really like these pens. Basically, in your annual game plan here, this is where you're going to write down if you have like a word or a focus for the year, you would write it down here. And then you can write down each of your quarters and your top main goals for those quarters, and then any important dates that you might have. Then this is actually one of my favorite sections of the planner. This helps me so much. This is the quarterly goals planner, and as you can see here, I've got quarter 2 and I'm slowly mapping that out. I've got a couple different goals that I'm working on that are kind of going to be split up between the 3 months. And as you can see here, we've got the week of the year. I also put in the dates here. I may make an update to this planner and move this week part a little to the left so there's a little more space here. But you definitely don't have to have the dates, but sometimes I like to write them down. But basically it kind of lets you know what's the main focus for each week. So I have the Pretty Productive Life launch that I did. Then we went to the ocean, and this week I'm working on a Pinterest course, and I'm also doing a launch for Publish with Purpose where we're actually creating pocket planners. And so I kind of know that just like gives me a glance of what's been working. And the goal here is to finish up quarter 2 and then really start looking at quarter 3 and quarter 4 and really mapping out what are those focus projects going to be. And what works now in my business, now that I have like my main programs outlined, is basically it's just deciding when am I launching things and when am I doing live rounds of my program. So knowing those things and making those decisions is going to allow me to kind of work back from there and create my content around that, podcast episodes, all that kind of stuff. So you've got 4 of these pages. Then you've got your project pages. So one of my projects that I'm working on right now is I'm going actually through Natalie Bardot's Pinterest Popular course. Really like it so far. And she's got a whole strategy. And I think there's like 15 hours of trainings in there. So I've definitely got to take some time to go through all of those. And what I'm going to actually do is make a breakdown list of all the trainings in the course so that I can check them off. And one thing I also want to share is that I use my planner, but I also use Notion, right? So sometimes for me, it can be kind of a duplicate action. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast as well, but it can actually help me a lot to physically write something down, even if it's just kind of the bare bones of something, and then come back to it later and flesh it out even more inside of Notion. So I am usually starting here with my projects, kind of breaking them down, and then I will either work from this planner if that just feels the best way, and other projects it just makes more sense to work from them completely from Notion. So I have this outlined here a little bit, and because it is a digital course, I may end up just completely moving it to Notion. I have a whole courses and tech tools database inside of Notion, so maybe it would be easier to kind of link to all that stuff there. But again, if I'm taking notes or I want to take some handwritten notes, this is probably where I would do that. Another project I'm going to be working on soon is doing an overhaul of Pretty Productive Life. That is my Notion course where there's a whole Notion ecosystem where we practice mindful productivity strategies to organize your life and biz and create content really sustainably. And I love that course. I'm so proud of the system I built, but I want to break it down and make it even more streamlined. And so I'm going to be actually overhauling the curriculum and creating a new version of the course that all students will get access to, but moving forward, that will be the new version of the course. So I think there's 8 of these project pages. And again, there's a place up here for your project name. This is your checkbox for when your project is completed. You've got a due date, a time estimate, description, work timeline, actual time, date completed, your task breakdown, and then a section over here like things to research. And I just find all these sections very, very helpful. And taking time to really map out your projects goes a long way. I know it's not something we always want to do, but it really helps. Then you've got your super awesome, amazing idea space. This is where I like to take pens, whether it's some of these big highlighters or some of my other favorite pens to use with this planner are these. These are the Papermate. In fact, this pink one is one of my favorites. But these are the Papermate Flare pens. There we go. Pretty standard. I'm sure you probably have some. But I love this, and this can be just a great place to write down like fun product ideas you have. So maybe like you're thinking about creating an Oracle or card deck or a pocket planner, right? Or, you know, you want to start a podcast or you've got some kind of amazing idea. This can be a great place to write those things down so that you don't forget them and then they're top of mind. So we're moving on into the monthly bank section, some of my favorite sections here. And in each monthly bank, you've got 4 pages. And in the front here, you've got your monthly overview. So this is where you write the month, and then you can write down a word, a theme, an intention if you want to do that for the month. And basically you're writing down your top 3 main priorities and tasks, and then any other things you want to keep top of mind. And so these can also just be like, maybe you have 1 to 2 or 3 main projects or something you're working on, then you can write them down there. And we'll get into the weeks area where we will break things down even further in a second. And then you've got a space for your appointments. You can write down what it is, the date and the time, notes and reminders and ideas, pretty straightforward. There's also the reflection and intention setting section, and I know people find this really, really helpful. And each one of these pages is different for every month, so you've got 12 different versions of this. But basically, these are like seed sentence prompts. So this one says, blank is something that no longer serves me because when I allow it, I feel blank, right? Or this month, I will work on harnessing my inner blank in order to feel blank and blank. So this could be related to patience or anger management or fitness or wellness, relationships, whatever. It's kind of just whatever comes to mind. And this is also a great way to practice journaling or get into the hang of it if that's something that you want to do, but it's kind of hard to do every day. So just monthly, doing this at the start, in the middle, or even at the end of the month can be a really great way to do that. And then at the bottom here, got a section that says, what do I need to write down and release? Then we've got our success list. So I talked about this in the beginning. This is a list every month where it says things that I accomplished. So these are things that maybe you had more control of. Like, let's say you set out to record an episode a week for your podcast and you did that. That could be something you add to your success list. Or, you know, I didn't snap with the kids this week, or I went for my daily walk, or whatever it is, right? Things that happened for me. So maybe you hit some green lights on the way to work. Maybe someone bought you Starbucks in front of you, whatever, right? Things that happen for you. And then again, your daily actions and habits. And this is where you can actually write down the date, the date of the month, and then just fill in the box as you complete them. And then every month there is a small quote, just something I wrote as a little reminder. I'm gonna put that there for access to it. So we've got the monthly banks. And then after those, this is where you will find the weekly sections. And in the weekly sections, this is where you're breaking down some of those main things that you want to work on for the month into your weekly setup. So you've got a space for every day of the week, right? You can write down the month, the dates, and what week number it is. And I will be honest that I typically don't use this personally for writing down like events and meetings, because that's all housed in my Google Calendar and my phone and my Fitbit. Those are the things that remind me of things that are coming up on my calendar. So I don't need them in here. However, what I do like to do is I'll often use different colored pens, and I will write down like maybe personal stuff is in pink, business stuff is in green, right? And so I'll write down kind of like the main tasks that I want to work on and some check boxes, and then I will go ahead and do it that way. So I really like that. And then notes section, sometimes this can be helpful if you need to remind yourself of something. Again, another area for your to-dos. Sometimes I will actually write business, personal, and like meal planning or something, and kind of write those down there. And then a section for ideas. You can keep this really functional and minimal and not use color and just make it messy, but you can also totally go crazy because there is space on the sides and the bottom here that works really well with washi tape. And so if you have a lot of washi tape, then go nuts, because you've got tons of space throughout this planner for that. So that's the whole section. And then in the back, you've got those collections and list pages and your notes, and all of the pages are numbered. So what I really recommend doing to use this planner is to go through and kind of map out, you know, a general idea of what you want to accomplish this year. When you kind of have an overall focus of your year and your quarterly goals, then as you go through the planner, when you get into those monthly sections, right, you're then able to say, okay, like, here's my month, and you can even go in here and be like, here are my main focuses for the week. And sometimes this will work backwards, right? So maybe the month is when you really are like, okay, now it's January, these are the things I want to do. Maybe then you come back in here and kind of back and forth, figure out what this looks like. You don't have to have all of this completed, right, to start your monthly planning or your weekly planning. But this basically serves as a reference point so you can come back and remember to see the bigger picture in your life and business. Because I think sometimes with planning, we can either stay big picture, broad focus, or we can get too in the weeds with stuff. And that's how sometimes deadlines or goals are missed. So, but I really like this because you can flip back and forth between your monthly section and whatever week that you're in. And I also really like this because let's say you start out, let's say it's January and you start out your month and you're all good to go and you have your first week of January, and then like life just happens, or you would rather plan in Notion or another digital tool or maybe even another planner, and 3 weeks go by, right? It doesn't matter because these aren't dated and because they're all together. So all you have to do is jump in here in February or March or whenever you get back to this planner and just write down your new week. And what else that I like to do too is sometimes I will just write down here in the corner the page number of whatever monthly section I'm in. So if this was the week I'm working on, it says page 107 here, and this monthly is 42. So I might just write down those page numbers in the corner so that I can easily go back and forth. Or if you have any of those like magnetic clips or little divider tabs, then you can also do that. So I hope this was helpful in giving you a little bit of an overview of the Mindful Productivity Guide planner. And again, this is an 8x10 planner. You can get this on Amazon. I will have the link below. And I also have a podcast episode I'll link below that does another walkthrough of the guide and the planner. And I think I mentioned a couple different ways to use it in that as well. So thank you so much for watching, and hit subscribe if you like this video, and I will see you all soon. Bye.